What could have been awesome if people hadn't ruined it? Meta keywords on websites used to be a good way to tell search engines what your website is about until lots of websites started keyword stuffing and adding tons of unrelated keywords to show up in more searches. So now most search engines just ignore them. Random adults helping random kids was ruined by pedophiles and kidnappers. I'd like to help this kid, but they might think I'm a creeper, so I'll just stay away. Stranger danger after AskReddit. Also I guess same thing applies to men legit wanting to help women out without any expectations whatsoever. Had a Nerf fight for my birthday, and one of my friends brought a modded Nerf Mega. Chat roulette. Cold been so awesome to just randomly chat with someone in another country, but people had to ruin it by just having decks on it all the time. Used to be TV news was commercial free, so it was considered a reasonably reliable source of information. Once they introduced the advertising supported 24-hour news cycle, they all had to compete for the most sensationalist stories hooking the most people instead of giving actual news. Duluth Trading Co. Satisfaction guarantee. If a product fails soon after purchase, send it back. If you use the product and it wears out, be a mensch and know that you got a high quality product that served you well, and don't cheat and say you're not satisfied like a punk. Lawn darts. My friend and I used to play a lawn dart chicken with the old fashioned metal tip ones. You toss it straight up and see who can wait the longest to dive out of the way when it comes back down. He won when it hit him. We had a common area where anyone who needed it could let their animals graze, but then wealthy folks with a lot of land and livestock would descend on it en masse, even though they didn't need it, and ruined it. It's a tragedy. Flying drones as a hobby. I'm scared to fly my race quad in my local park now. My favorite fishing spot. The History Channel, TLC, Discovery, etc. used to be such great education tools and put out great content. Now, it's saturated with reality TV shows that are on all the time. God, I miss when I was in middle school and history was all about that WWII sheet. I learned way more about WWII on history than in class. The Great Barrier Reef was, and still is, awesome. Unfortunately Australia and the world have likely doomed it. The mountain lake where my parents had a summer cabin and dock for fishing and swimming. It used to be pristine and peaceful, the smell of pine trees in the breeze and abundant fish. Now, as I once mentioned, the trees have been cut down, the water is polluted with oil and gas from roaring motorboat engines, and the fish are gone. Similar thing in northern Indiana at Lake Tippecanoe where my family has had a place since the 1950s. Sure, developers come into places that are beautiful, but they have built so many giant homes that it's mostly multi-millionaires up there with their huge wakeboarding boats and personal watercraft. I love looking at the photos from the 80s when I grew up and we went up there to fish and swim and water ski. The people were real. Lots of retirees who worked all their lives to buy a little cottage on the lake, and the families passed the cottages down the generations. Oh, well, that's what happens I guess. There are a lot of lakes up there, and they are all beautiful. Kids being able to play and wander outside all day on their own without constant supervision. Oh, and the word daddy. I'm from rural New York, and we always did this. Old guys always told us how good it was in the old days when you could bike to each other's houses and hang out wherever and have freedom. And I always tell them I'm 18 now, and we always did this. We were allowed to do it as long as we stayed off the main roads and came back by 6. Social media. It seems like it would be a great way to meet people, share ideas, and learn. Instead people take great joy in trolling, scamming, and deliberately spreading crap. Climbing Mount Everest. It used to be a huge accomplishment and nowadays people hire Nepali people to take all their stuff and make their way up easy and comfortable. There is also a huge amount of trash and a queue. A queue at the very top. California. It was really nice in my teens and in my 20s, but now it takes 3 hours to get home. And if you want to go to the mall, leave 30 minutes early cause that's how long it takes to find parking. Gender reveal parties. Should have just been a cute way to let people know if you're having a boy or a girl. but now people go to ridiculous lengths for their parties. The worst I've heard about was a couple that decided to set off an appropriately colored explosion and ended up starting a giant wildfire. I only wanted to do one so I could eat cake. I didn't want to invite anyone else. Just get a cake. My husband vetoed it because, as it turns out, when you're an adult you can just eat cake for no reason. Florida. I grew up surrounded by orange groves, beautiful lakes and stunning beaches. Now my childhood home was bulldozed to make room for a highway. The orange groves have all been replaced by overpriced luxury apartments, and the lakes are all devoid of natural wildlife except for algae and amoebas, because it was all killed by the owners of the cheap McMansions around them. Florida is dead. Limericks. It was a vaccine for Lyme disease, but had the unfortunate timing of coming out when the anti-vaccine hysteria started. Where I'm in the northeast, 1 in 3 ticks carry the disease, and if not caught early can cause serious health risk for the rest of your life. If I won one of those insane lotteries like $1 billion, I would try to revive it. Or if every Reddit person sent me $50, I would try to get it funded. Almost every new feature added to an internet browser. This job would be great if it weren't for the ducking customers. Randall. Spore. Maxes themselves did a great job building it all up, but then when they got EA in on things, shit went down the ducking drain. Spore could have been a much better game without EA getting its money hungry ass down on it. The Zune, and more importantly the service. If you pay $10 or $15 a month you got access to any song, and got to download and buy 15 songs a month. So if you stopped using it, you kept your music. Self-checkout machines. In theory it should be a faster way to make your purchases. In practicality, it's a bloated mess of a system. The system gives you unreasonable errors. Coupons and discounts often require staff interaction. People with too many groceries, or who can't use the system, slow it all down to a crawl. At this point any kind of queue for those machines has me searching for staff to ring through my purchases instead. Most fandoms. I love Undertale and Steven Universe. Absolutely hate the fandom edit. Jesus tits. 99 plus notifications from one post. Shout out to Pop and Rick and Morty. Using headsets to talk to people while playing a game. Then everyone brought their vulgarity and get good to it. If we could have chilled out, it would be a fun way to meet new people who share an interest. My hometown. It was a smaller tourist trap sort of town when I was younger, especially where I lived, but once people started talking about our amazing food, sunset cliffs, and all of our amusement parks on social media, it blew up. Now after a sunset people use my street as a highway to get back to their hotels and the easier to access beaches. On top of that, our record for the number of people falling off of the cliffs down the street in one day is 3. The amount of people that have died trying to take cute selfies is way too high. Also goatee, if only some people could write. I've seen fan fictions written by a 12-year-old that had more thought out in. Public toilets. I mean, how hard can it be to cast sit down sheet while ear as and go away? No, some of these fuckers have the goddamn urge to sheet on walls, the floor, or even the toilet seat. Others need to piss everywhere. Nobody flushes the toilet and some think they have to write some sheet on the walls. The body acceptance movement. It's somehow morphed into a screw skinny people and my doctor can't tell me my weight is dangerous for my health and just all around kinda negative thing. Feeling shameful when other women remark on how thin I'm sucks. I immediately feel like I have to apologize, like I'm a problem and not a friend. Immediately. What people don't know is I had pediatric cancer and since adopted a lifestyle that is incredibly health focused for occurrence prevention. I'm so dedicated to eating right and working out and meditating, etc. And yes, I'm proud of my body. I work damn hard to have a body that allows me to get out of bed and do shit that actually functions like a normal body and is keeping me alive. It just so happens that all these things I do also make me very slender. FCK everyone who says shit to make me feel shameful about it. Maybe I need therapy for this, actually. Shocked at how angry I'm right now. Medication. All these executives talk about saving the world or how poor little Timmy can't do ABC. Well, maybe he could, if the costs of insulin or anti-cancer meds weren't sky high. Be a hero and save lives. Stop putting profits over people. Universities getting into uni and getting a degree used to be such an achievement. Now a company will barely give you the time of day if you don't have a degree, and universities are becoming industrial estates that are weeding out unprofitable degrees, i.e. humanities and arts mostly, so their statistics look better, and they get more funding from the government and companies investing in them. Major ice cream brands came up with a genius way of sealing their containers. The container is filled with liquid ice cream, then flipped upside down and frozen, creating a natural seal. No plastic necessary, until someone decided to start licking them in the stores. Asking the public to name something. It used to mean something. People picked a name that made sense, that resonated with people. That's how Pluto got its name. Now it's all in service of a joke. And if you point that out, you're labeled a party McPoopy face. Yes, I made the joke. I'm not giving you the satisfaction. Any outdoor experience. Camping, hiking, trail riding. There is a majority jerk factor now. From littering to ATVs blasting off trail and general vandalism. There feels like there is no peaceful places left. The hitchhiking robot, Hitchbot, could have made its way across the continent and people from all over could share the experience of seeing this cute robot in their area. It successfully hitchhiked across Canada, but was decapitated and ripped apart 2 weeks after entering the US. Rick and Morty. The show was a clever sci-fi deconstruction that riffed on a ton of classic horror, sci-fi, and fantasy tropes. It threw in some dark comedy and dramatic moments here and there, but always fell back into the wacky sci-fi hijinks. Now the fans are incredibly toxic and obsessive about how deep and philosophical it is, and the show seems to be leaning into it. The last season just didn't hook me. It went from obvious attempts at generating memes to bleak melodrama that feels like it was written by a teenager who just discovered a philosophy textbook. I really dislike the fandom of this show. It's still one of my favorite shows, but my god has the community for it become a toxic cesspool. Season 3 had its moments, but my favorite episodes are in 1 and 2 by far. Sheet, do you remember the kid screaming at a Mickey D's 4 nugget sauce? What the actual duck? Mini disc. Then some jerk had the bright idea of moving away from CDs altogether. I still feel bad for the people who put all the hard work into getting that up and going, just for new technology to take a massive dump on their faces like a year or so later. I was young when this happened, so my memory and facts might not line up 100%. Dockless bike share. It sure was great to rent a bike for a short trip without having to know exactly what docks were near your route set and destination. But people parked the bikes like assholes, so no one is allowed to have them now. Just escooters and a few e-bikes if you're lucky. Dave Matthews Band. I had always stayed away cause I was the same way with only douchebags listen to Dave Matthews. My sister had an extra ticket back in like 2015 or 2016. And I went with her cause I wasn't doing anything that night. Turns out they're ducking awesome musicians, but everyone just goes and spends the whole time FaceTiming people or calling people to tell them OMG we are at Dave Matthews Band concert. I feel like only a few people there were actually enjoying the music and most people were just there to say they were there and left early. But like I said, incredible musicians.